Welcome to the Getting Real with Hillary show, where ordinary heroes tell extraordinary stories during unique and never been heard before conversations with your host, Hillary Arno Burns. Hillary's unique listening and way of asking questions results in conversations that aren't usually talked about, so you can create the life that you really want but are afraid you can't really have. We are demonstrating the greatness in the human spirit and creating a world where we all reclaim our birthright of joy, happiness, purpose, and passion. Now, here's your host, Hillary Arno Burns. Welcome to the Getting Real with Hillary show, and today we have a very special guest. We have Kristin Bruce, school counselor and business owner, and the proud author of Starting from Scratch, A Guide to Feeling Good. This book can transform your teenagers' lives and quite possibly yours too. So welcome, Kristen. Hello.
Hi, Hillary. It's so nice to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So, all right. So before we go to the book, we're going to just talk about Kristen and, some of the couple of things that impacted her life and how she, I'm going to assume, got into the field that she's in today.
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about your childhood a little bit?
Yeah. So I think I am in the self-esteem field because of my childhood. It was rocky at times. I grew up with, I grew up in the 70s. So in that era, there were a lot of drugs going on. And so my home was, frequently filled with people doing drugs, a lot of drinking. And I always felt as a kiddo lonely. I had my brother. We did not talk about the things that went on in our childhood until later in life, until I was in college and started therapy and on the healing path. I wish I would have sooner, because maybe I would have not felt as alone in my childhood as I did. But
Did you, when you were a child, I don't know if that was normal where you lived to have that going on, but did you ever know, like, if other families had that going on too, if yours was different or?
well, I think when there are drugs or alcohol or whatever else could be going on in the families, those were the two biggies for mine. I think you kind of unconsciously don't share those family secrets.
Mm,
I remember in third grade, so I kind of stayed to myself. I was always really good in school. And I was the girl that I would stay after during recess and help the teacher. At that time, there were chalkboards instead of dry
mhm.
erase boards or smart boards. So I would erase the chalkboards or, do things for the teachers. I had a couple friends, but I spent a lot of time, I think, not making friends on purpose because then maybe they would find out what my home life was. And
Mm.
I remember in third grade, there was a friend in my classroom, and I really just loved her, and we became best friends. And so I'd always go to her house after school. And she would always say, "Okay, you come to my house all the time. I want to go to yours." But I never knew what was going on at my house. So I did not want kids over there. And so I always would make an excuse to not have her over, and I never told her, look, I don't know if my family's going to be doing drugs or drinking, I don't know what's going to happen there, so that's why I'm not having you over. That's why I like your house instead. And and I remember one time she kind of gave me an ultimatum. She said, either I come to your house or we're not going to be friends anymore. And kind of beat around the bush and, skirted the issue and said, let's just go to your house after school. I don't really want to go to mine. I have more fun at yours, or you have more toys, or, whatever the excuse was I made. And she said no. And the next day at school, she wouldn't talk to me. So I lost a friend because I didn't have her, and reasonably so. She had no idea what was going on. Um, but my fear of losing a friend because of what was going on in my household, I lost a friend anyway.
Yeah.
So I could have just been honest with her, but
Hmm.
you have those family secrets that kids don't want to tell.
Was it shame or fear or like what
A
do you
lot,
think that was?
yeah, there was a lot of shame. My family's doing not good stuff, so that's going to be reflected on me, or I'm bad because my family's not doing good stuff. You know, and
No,
I said,
were both parents doing it?
uh,
Like in the home, like you would see them doing it?
e- so they drank openly. The alcohol wasn't hidden. The pot wasn't really hidden either. The other stuff was done on the weekends after we went to bed, but sometimes I'd get up early on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning and go in the backyard, and there would be, white powder on
Mm-hmm.
the table, or so I knew what was going on. And just because the kids are, air quote, asleep,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean they don't know what's going on, you know. So the harder stuff, I think they tried to keep hidden. The alcohol was open, the pot was open. Um,
So
yeah.
like if someone had come over to your house, what would they have seen something or you would have just been too nervous? Like would like what would
Well, you know, I don't know what would have been in the ashtrays. It might have
Oh,
been
okay.
cigarettes, it might have been something else. I
Okay.
think that's probably the worst they would have seen. And, probably at that time, a lot of other families had that going on in their house too. Um, but you don't know because you don't talk about that,
Right.
you know? So
Right. Right.
I don't know when I went to her house, it wasn't going on there.
Right.
Her parents would have cookies and milk, and um, so it was just different. It was just different. Yeah.
So did you ever try to make a friend again? Um
I did. I did. I we moved a we moved not long after that. That was third grade. Fourth grade, I had a couple school friends, and then there were friends on the block. Like there were kids on the block that
mhm.
we rode bikes with, and we played hide and seek with, or whatever we did outside. They would come knocking at the door. Can you come out? Yeah, hang on, and then I'd be out and we'd go play. But as far as inviting people into my home, that was I didn't
Yeah.
do that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so how long did that go on? Like your whole childhood? Did it ever stop?
that went on my whole childhood. My parents ended up divorcing. I think I was in probably high school when that happened, when
Mm.
they divorced. But yeah, through high school, I didn't really have people over at my house. Now in high school, it's a little different because I had a job and had a car, and so we could drive to the movies or drive to whatever we're gonna do. Um, so we didn't really hang out in people's homes in high school. We more did
Right.
stuff out. But yeah, I still didn't have people really a lot at my house.
Right. Okay.
And now
And
it's because I love to entertain, but I think it's because of that.
yeah. So, okay. So now you had said a couple of other things happened when you were a child that kind of impacted you.
right?
Yeah. Well, there were, you know, there was a molestation um, from
Okay.
one of my uncles, and that I didn't share because I didn't know if people would believe me, because he always was bringing me gifts or teddy bears or things like that, and like everyone loved him, and when I was backing away, everyone else was go sit on his lap, and so I kind of kept that hidden until it surfaced in therapy later.
And how old were you?
I was probably 7 or 8. I was
Oh
little.
my God.
Yeah, I was little. I was
And did
little.
it go on for a while or was it like once?
Um, you know, I remember a night, um, but I also remember, sitting on his lap, and then, he'd have his arm around me and it would just be a little too close to my,
Mm,
chest area.
yeah.
Um, Now he and my aunt divorced not long after that, so I don't think
Mm.
it went on, a extremely long time. But
Was
he
he
just
not the family member? Was he not the family member? He married.
he married in.
Yeah, so you didn't have to see him again?
I didn't see him after that. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So, but
wow. That'll do. So what do you think you made up about that?
so I learned to trust. I learned to trust myself.
Mm,
I think it from every heartache. There's a joyful lesson that you get from it.
mm-hmm,
I didn't trust people, and especially men, for a really long time, nor did I trust myself. And I had to work through that, but I learned that yes, not all men are great, but there's a lot of really good guys out there.
mm,
Not everyone's like that, and um and I learned forgiveness for sure.
mm,
I did a lot of work around that, but I learned his childhood pain, and what
mm,
he went through, and everything that was causing him to do that. And he died of alcoholism, so I think he never quite got over that. I feel blessed that I was had the courage to find therapy and work through all that stuff because it made me stronger.
mm. Did you
And
ever talk to him again or you just heard about it
I
afterwards?
heard about it. I
Yeah.
heard about it. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say he never got over it, do you mean that or do you mean his childhood?
Well, I think both. I think he died an alcoholic.
Yeah,
So he for sure never got over his childhood.
right.
There has to have been guilt that he felt. I do know that he did remarry, and he named his my aunt my aunt he and my aunt never had kids
Mm,
together. But he remarried, and he had a daughter and named his daughter Kristen. So I believe that maybe could have been a turning point for him to say, sorry, I did
yeah.
that to you, but I will not do that to my daughter. Um, and so that had to be torment for him as well, living with the guilt that he hurt a girl, a baby
Mm,
child, you know.
yeah. Wow. Good for
Yeah.
you. And when did you start therapy? In high school or college, did you say?
Yeah, it was right after college. Like I had a string of relationships that weren't working, and I just knew, I had friends, so there was nothing on the outside wrong that people could see. And I even had a boyfriend tell me, well, there's no self-esteem issue with you, but I think I was overcompensating because
Mm,
really on the inside there was. On the inside, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel loved. I felt alone, you know. So
mhm,
I started therapy at the tail end of college because I knew I wasn't happy. I was searching for more. I think
mm.
searching for more. You know,
Wow.
I wasn't finding it on the outside because it's always on the inside.
Right.
It's
And
always
what were you studying? What were you studying in college?
so. I was really good at math. Um, but I was a math major for a long time, and then decided I'm really good at it, but I don't like it. I don't like
Yeah,
it. I didn't want to do that my whole life.
right.
So I completely flipped. I went into education.
Oh,
Yeah, I completely flipped. Um,
good for
and
you. Could have
goodness,
been
yeah,
stuck.
thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. Now, so, okay. So did you know that you didn't feel good enough, or was that something you learned in therapy?
I didn't know I didn't feel good enough because, I had the friends in college, I had the group I hung out with, I had we went out every weekend and sometimes during the week, and, we had fun like college kids do. Never did any drugs, but I did drink. But I could feel it inside of me that I wasn't happy.
Mm,
And I don't know if anyone else was feeling that because it wasn't really something that we talked about, but it was just something I knew within me that there's more, you
yeah.
know, it's kind of superficial and there's more. And where do I find that? So I was lucky that I had that. I think I just had that inner calling to heal,
Yeah.
you know?
That's amazing at such a young age, you
It,
know?
yeah,
So the
yeah.
therapist obviously helped you to get in touch with all that, right?
Lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was amazing. She was amazing, and I
Wow.
remember sitting on her couch, that first session, and she said, "Why are you here?" Like that was her question. She asked me, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I don't know," because, and this is what I told her, and I'm sure she just kind of rolled her eyes and shook her head, but I said, "I don't know. This is for other people. I don't need this. I'm good." So I'm sure that was her first clue of, girl, you probably need it more than anyone
Yeah.
else. So,
But you knew something was going on. So that good for you, you know?
yeah, I think I went because I couldn't keep a relationship. My
Mm,
relationships weren't working out. And so that was the reason that I went, but that was not the reason I stayed.
mm. And how long did you do that, the therapy?
Oh gosh. Still to this day, I do it, not,
Wow.
on a weekly basis, but
Yeah.
still to this day, I have my teachers I go to,
Yeah.
that
Good.
help me. So yeah.
Good. So anything else from childhood before we move on? I know that you said your mom was an alcoholic, but you chose not to go that route.
I
Like,
did. I I didn't want the chaos it brought in the household. I didn't want that in me.
mm,
And and I mean, kids drink in college. I drank in college. My friends drank in college. I still managed to graduate college and be fine. But certainly I could have gotten lost in that. You
did you
know.
ever like black out or anything, or you just
No.
partied
Yeah.
like the rest? Yeah. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like a genetic thing where you couldn't have one.
I
Yeah.
no, no, for sure. It was not.
Yeah.
No.
Good. All right. And then how? I know you said you went into special ed. Why special ed?
Well, I think I knew I wanted to work with kids and help them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I had a calling. Kids, I always babysat when I was growing up. Loved kids. Kids have always loved me. I think I just had that calling in me. I don't think I felt good enough to work with the regular ed, the students
Ah,
ed. So I think I chose special ed because of that. I think maybe I saw myself as broken, so let me
mm,
try to help other souls that other people view as maybe being broken. That
mm,
could have been going on in my head.
mm.
Um,
And you did that for 20 years.
I did that for 20 years. Yeah, I did all ages. I did preschool all the way through high school. So mostly the little ones, but I love the big ones too.
And did you love it?
I loved it. I loved it. It
Okay.
was challenging at times, don't get me wrong, with shaping behaviors is not easy when
Right.
you're with the tantrums and, that kind of stuff. And there were kiddos who got violent.
Mm.
I got hurt a couple times.
You
Um,
got hurt?
I got hurt a couple times. Yeah. Um,
Like badly?
I got my shoulder, dislocated
Ah,
from a student. Um,
ouch.
he got mad and just started wailing, and my shoulder went out. Um, so yeah,
And what
it.
happened? Did anything happen to him or you or anything? Or
I ended up, I did some physical therapy around it, and that was just part of who he was
yeah.
when what
Wow.
he did when he didn't always get his way. Um,
Did you
so
still work with him after that?
I did. I still
And
worked
he
with him after that. Yeah.
and he was okay? Did he know what he did? Did he apologize or was he
I
not aware?
Yeah, I don't think he had the recollection.
Mm,
They he got in such a fit of rage by being he was pretty violent. He would go after other students, and so I kind of stepped in to help him not hurt another student, and so I got the hurt
uh,
instead.
yeah, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. But you kept doing it, right? You didn't quit.
I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I did kept
And
doing
then
it.
and then how did you switch to being a regular kid counselor?
Yeah.
How did you make that move?
Well, so I saw in working with the kiddos that, and also from my own experience, when kiddos come in because they've had an issue at home in the morning, or stuff is going on at their home, or they had an issue maybe not even in the home, on the bus. They got into a disagreement with their friends on the bus, and they get off the bus upset. Well, you can't say take out your book and turn to page 32 and let's read, because
Hmm.
that's not where their mind is. Their mind is, they may take out the book compliantly, sure, they may turn to page 32, but you know, we all know when we have an issue going on and we're at work, we're thinking about the issue. We're thinking about how to make amends, how to solve it, what could I have done differently. That goes on in your head. So I saw that when I gave kids the grace to work out their problems in the morning, the day went much better and they could focus much easier and they got concepts a lot faster, you know?
Hmm.
And
So how did you do that? Were you already, was that when you were with the special ed kids or that was when you had switched?
no, I was still with the special ed kids in special ed. Um, and, because no matter if you have a disability or not, you still have, everybody has feelings and everybody wants to feel heard and validated, and they're,
So that,
no.
yeah, so those were the kids with the issues, the difference. Okay. So
And so
then
I
you, yeah.
I gave them the grace to get some of that stuff out, and I helped them work through that stuff in the morning, and then that gave us a much easier day. And so from there, I thought, you know what? I have the ability to do that because my schedule was a little flexible because I was working in special ed, and sometimes the schedules are a little more flexible. Regular ed does not have that flexibility.
Mm.
They're 9 o'clock reading, 10 o'clock math, 11 o'clock, lunch, 11:30, social studies, blah blah blah. Um, that's where the counselors come in, and I knew some of the behaviors in the regular ed um, were because of they didn't get to get their stuff out, and so I wanted to make a difference there. So I wrote a curriculum and switched to school counseling. Yeah.
And was that easy to do, the switch?
Well, those jobs are not easy to come by. Not every
People stay, right?
yeah, not every school has them, and people when they get those jobs, they stay. So it took me a while to find a position, and when those positions do open up, you could have 50 applicants for one
Wow.
position. So they're not easy to find, and I was blessed to find one. Yeah.
So was it with the same school or a different school?
Different district, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
In a different district, yeah. Um,
And
the,
how
dis-
many years? Yeah.
the district where I'm at, they know what they're doing. They have counselors in all grades, not just junior high or high school. They have them in elementary schools too. I think schools are starting to be more cognizant of the need of, that social emotional help for all kids at all ages.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Wow. And so how many years have you been doing that?
So 3 years as a
3
counselor.
years. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where are you located? What part of the country?
I my I live in Bakersfield, California, but my
Okay.
school is in Ridgecrest. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Wow. Okay. Because I'd interviewed a principal of a school who was talking about what you were talking about when the kids got off the bus upset. They could tell these were elementary though. She said they could tell, and
yeah.
they were just on them, like, in a good way. Like, tell me what happened. Well, sometimes they visited the home. I mean, they were really all over these kids, which was really great. It was very inspiring to know
Yeah.
they were
You need
so attuned to the kids. Yeah.
well, they know it makes school go easier. There's going to be less fights, less less issues. There's less defiance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kiddos are going to be more compliant, and it also facilitates their learning.
Right. And what ages are you? You're with middle school, did you say, or no?
I am in elementary school as
Oh,
well,
you
so
are. Okay.
I have kinder through fifth grade, sixth grade, soon. Um,
Wow. So how do you know, like, do the kids come to see you at that age, or do you just see them and say, hey, come here?
so it's a lot of both. It's a lot of, if I see an issue, I'll pull them in and say, come on, we need to talk. Sometimes it's a teacher will refer them, and so then I'll see them on a weekly basis. Um, Sometimes a lot of times the kids will just come. A lot
Wow.
of times the kids will just come. I have I have a group of kids, and they always say, let's go to the counselor to fight. And it's funny because what that means is we're fighting now. Let's go to the counselor to work out our fight.
Wow.
They always tell me, we came to you to fight. Okay. And I correct them. You didn't come to me to fight. You have the fight already. You came to to work out the fight.
That's hysterical. Well, that's nice though. I
Yeah.
don't remember having that as a kid. I don't even remember being aware.
I
You
don't
know,
think
yeah.
I
Do you
don't
think
think we
times
have.
are different? Do you think things are different now that kids are aware that they can go to you? I mean, I don't remember a counselor. They probably had them, but I just don't remember thinking to go there, you know?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I only remember having a high school counselor, and that's
Yeah.
just because they made my schedule.
Right.
I had to go to
Or
them
for
for schedule.
college.
I
Yeah.
didn't know, yeah, and for college, and I didn't know you could go to them for emotional needs or if you had a problem, and
Right.
certainly we didn't have them in elementary schools, and I don't even know that we had them in junior high, to tell you the truth. Back, I,
Right. So I wonder what's different that they would go. Do you know? Are things more evolved? Do you think?
I think I think there's more issues,
Mm,
than when I was going through school. I think there's more issues. There's certainly way more anxiety and depression with kids.
mm,
But I also, it took a while to gain the kids' trust and to
mm,
let them know that I was there for other things besides, hey, I just failed the test, you know.
mm.
And then I think once kids get an emotional need met and feel better, the word gets out. And
Right.
hey,
Okay.
you
That's
feel
great.
better. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then they start coming with friends, And
Right.
then they
That's
start coming with
great.
friends. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So we're going to go to our commercial break. Um, and then we're going to come back and talk about your book and the work that you're doing and your program. All right. And
Perfect.
so just a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with Kristin Bruce.
Has social emotional learning become just one more thing on your teachers' plates? Do teachers and students both find it boring and ineffective? Then bring Kikori to your school. Kikori transforms classrooms through experiential SEL activities that help students play, reflect, connect, and grow. Even better, students say it's more fun than recess. Schedule a no-obligation conversation at kikoriapp.com/bringkikori. KIKORI.
Do you ever feel like you can't say what you really want to say? Or that you're stuck or in a holding pattern in your relationships, career, personal life, or finances? Are there things you want in life that you've given up on? Are you resigned that this is as good as it's going to get? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then Hillary Burns, host of the Getting Real with Hillary show, has the solution you need. Hillary is a published author of 3 books and has a program called the Getting Real process. This process frees you from what is holding you back, allowing you to create a life you love. Don't believe it? It is hard to believe that it could work, isn't it? The proof is that hundreds of Hillary's clients have used the Getting Real process and are now free to create whatever they want in relationships, career, finances, enjoying life, or just loving themselves more. So go to realtalkwithhillary.com and order Hillary's book, Real Talk, and set up a conversation.
So welcome back to the Getting Real with Hillary show. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, kikoriapp.com. And we were just talking about social emotional learning with Kristen. And so if you want to bring that to your school, experiential social emotional learning to your schools, contact kikoriapp.com and have a conversation. It really does make a difference. And it's just what we're talking about today. And then also, if you saw my books, if you want a really good summer reading, This is my memoir, The Second Piece of French Toast. You can find it on Amazon. And also, if you're someone like, again, Kristen was talking about, she wasn't one to speak up when she was growing up. Well, me neither. Way into this late age, I learned that speaking up can create a lot of freedom and make a huge difference in your life. That's my book, Real Talk. I have realtalkwithhillary.com. You can go check it out. There's some really juicy stories. And again, you're not allowed to judge me. That's what I say. Okay. And then the third one, my favorite, Your Bullshit is Your Blessing. This is tools and techniques from getting from what I call the left side of life, where everything looks pretty bad, back to the right side, where you have fun, possibility, you create, and you just create a wonderful life. So that's Your Bullshit is Your Blessing. And now we're going to bring back to the studio Kristin Bruce to tell you about what she is up to and her book and how she's making a huge difference with children. Here she is. All right, so
Hi.
let's hold up your book again. It's called Starting from Scratch, A Guide to Feeling Good. And who is this aimed at? What age child would you
So,
say? Or the parents?
well, here's the thing. When I wrote the book, as you know, being an author, it's not just you write it and then you publish it. You write it, you get it edited, you get it edited again, you get it edited again. And so the people that edited it were adults. Now the pictures and the stories are more for teens, what teens are going through. So I would say fifth grade, sixth grade through high school.
Okay.
But the people who were reading and editing the book all said, "Oh my gosh, I learned so much from this book. It's not just for teens." So yeah, I mean, the concepts are there's no age. There's no
Right.
for going through your feelings or learning to communicate, like your book, learning to communicate. There's no age limit on that.
I was going through it. I only got it yesterday, so I didn't get to finish it, but there was a couple things. Communication blockers. So if you want to get this book, it is so thorough. It covers so much. It's got so much in it, right? I mean, I couldn't read it fast. I just couldn't. I
Yeah.
tried, but I was like, oh, too much. So I thought communication blockers. I've never heard of that before, but I know people who are sarcastic. So I know we're supposed to look at ourselves. I'm sure I get that way too. But sarcasm, lecturing, accusing, placating, probing, evaluating, solving, and rejecting the feeling are communication blockers. It's like, oh yeah. I've been on both sides.
I've been on both sides too. I have been on all of those. All of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. I know when I don't get my own way or I'm disappointed, I get sarcastic or victimized, and people feel blamed. And then it's like, it all goes downhill from there, right?
Well, it's a natural response.
Yeah.
We don't want to feel like we did something wrong or like, so we come back with a sarcastic answer, and that cuts that conversation off. You know,
Hmm.
um, and
Yeah.
and I had a boyfriend in college, and we that's all we did. We were just sarcastic with each other, and he told me, he's like, yeah, my dad told me that if you're sarcastic, it means you're quick-witted. And at that time, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You can think of quick, witty little comebacks. But then later, as I started delving into emotions, it's like, oh no, sarcasm is a way to stop the emotions.
And can be and it can be aimed at the other person, which is hurtful.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
always aimed at the other person, which is hurtful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. The
sure.
other thing, and then I want to talk about your program, but I just put down a couple pages here. It was the boundary one. Wait, that was okay. Some healthy boundaries to you in relationships with others. It's like I haven't even read them yet. I'm kind of afraid to. I will only allow people to speak to me with respect. If you do not, I will end the conversation.
That's hard.
No, but it's so valuable to know that that's a thing.
Yeah.
So I was a people pleasing, pleasant, phony. That's why I started getting real with Hillary, so I could be my real self. That's where it all started in 2019.
Yeah.
And so I would just let people talk to me. However, like I thought my job was to keep them happy. Well, I finally realized after sacrificing so much time and feeling terrible, like that I couldn't keep them happy anyway. Inevitably, I did something wrong and they got mad and like left or whatever. But, I thought that was my job. So it was such an awakening um, to know, wow. And when this girl finally, like, we had worked together and she left, I was just like, wow, when I didn't have such a negative energy around me, I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't even know. I was so in it. My kids were like, why are you talking to her? And I was like, well, it's my job, blah, blah, blah. And it was literally my job, but eventually I could not. And I just decided not to. And then she left because she couldn't control me anymore. So it was interesting. But,
Yeah.
you know, like, if someone's in an abusive relationship, for example, if that's what they're used to, or they're a people pleaser, or they're making excuses for themselves or whatever, um, I mean, I just heard this woman saying she was in an abusive marriage, but she kept telling herself, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And
That's
she
what people
stayed
say.
until
Yeah.
one day she was like, I don't know how, something woke her up and she realized, wait, this is not okay. And I got to leave. Do you know what I mean? Like, what causes that awakening? So I think sometimes we're just not aware.
Yeah. Or we don't want to face it. We
Yeah,
know what's going on, but then there's other stuff like, am I going to be alone? Or is anyone else going to love me? Or, how am
right,
I going to survive? Am I going to have money? Or,
right. It's
all
like the
those.
past. Yeah.
Maybe
Wow.
we think it's better to be loved unhealthily than to be alone, which isn't true, but there's I've done it too. I've done all those justifications, you
Yeah.
know?
And I know people who've gotten married. There was one girl, she literally was taking drugs at her wedding. Like, obviously she knew something was wrong, but she thought no one else was going to ask her. So she went through with the marriage. Of course, she had two kids and then got divorced, but, um, you know, we think there's no one else, or we think we should settle or something, you
Yeah.
know?
I think,
Ooh. Anyway, all right. We could go down that hole really
yeah,
far. But, okay, let's go back to your book. And I know this is stuff that I never knew. I mean, I've been studying, transformation for like 30 years, but when I was young, I had no idea. I was just doing what I was doing. I didn't
we
know
don't,
anything else. I was fine. That's what I was. I was
that's what I
fine.
told my therapist. I'm fine. I don't need to be here. I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I was fine. And
Yeah.
then finally someone said to me, "Well, tell your face." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like I was just unaware. And
Yeah.
so I think this is a book that can help people to not have to spend so many years unaware.
Yeah.
Like, and I think even there's so much in it that the parents could do it with the kids. But my question, I was thinking, how kids, like, I thought you worked with teenagers. So, and I thought this was for teachers. I guess it's for everyone. But
So here's
the
it is for, early tweens, teens and up. I in my business, I work with teens. My
okay,
job as a counselor, I work with elementary kiddos, but I still
okay,
use the same concepts.
yeah, yeah. So, because I was worrying. Um, But I remember, watching the elementary school kids. They're not worried about being cool yet, maybe in fifth grade, but before that, they're just kids. They're just lovely, wonderful kids. And so I would think this would be easier with them. But as you get to be a teenager and they're worried about being cool and stuff like that, I would be afraid that they would think this wasn't cool. Like, how do you get kids into your program to allow themselves to not, I mean, I'm not saying it's not cool, but do you know what I mean?
So it's funny because I hear it even as kindergartners, they want to fit in.
Yeah.
They want to fit in. They don't know sharing emotions will help them. And and I remember always being in awe over the kiddos who had good boundaries because it was like, I want to be that. I want to be able to say that. You know, I
Mm,
want to be able to say, no, I don't want to go there, or no, I don't like you, or you know what I mean? I wanted to be able to set those boundaries. So I think there was a respect for people who
right.
were able to openly communicate. And I see that even in the elementary kiddos. Um, Now, it is true that they maybe don't know how to go through their feelings or even what they are feeling sometimes. That takes a little work. But from what I've seen, every kiddo, and I have a line sometimes out my door, they all want to come in and work their problems out. You
Wow.
took the ball away from me and I felt hurt. So they, I think, I think that it's because they feel better, and that's what's cool about it. And
Okay.
once you see the other person is able to go, you're right, I did take the ball away. I did it because, you hit me with it or whatever, whatever. It's always a two-sided,
Mm, yeah.
um, and that hurt my feelings. And they talk and work it out. They know they feel better. So then they come back.
Mm,
And I have worked with teens who have been resistant at first and
yeah.
then said, oh my God, this counseling thing, it's not so bad, you know? Um,
And
because
how do they get to you? Like how, yeah, if somebody wanted to do your program, like could a mother tell their kid or the kid has to find you? Like how does it work? How do they
so
find you for the
yeah,
program?
so I have a website.
Okay.
It's howtobehappy.kids.
Mhm.
So they can go to my website
Okay.
and put their information in there, and then I can reach out, or they can just, you know, text or send me a text or give me a call. It's 714-330-4468. That's on my website too.
So,
So
say it again, 714-330.
4468.
Okay. So you can
Yeah.
text her, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And how do people find you? Like besides the show, like how do you get your kids?
So I get a lot of kids by referrals. Kids will talk and then tell their friends, hey, I'm doing this and it's making me feel better. I get a lot of parents actually, because I've done a little bit of advertising too on Facebook,
Hmm.
um, for kids struggling with depression and anxiety. So
Mm.
parents will call from that. If they see their kiddo suffering from depression or anxiety, they'll call, or just a general low self-esteem. They'll call me from
So the
that.
parent, oh, okay. And do you
Yeah,
work virtually or just in person?
I do both. I do virtually and in person. I like the virtual, and I find the kids like the virtual because they can just flip open their Chromebook right then and there and log in.
Wow.
Um, and it's in a group. So
Oh, okay.
even kiddos who are kind of afraid to share in the beginning, they can hear stories from other kiddos. And then
Mm.
they're like, oh, yeah, that's me too. And then slowly but surely they start sharing and opening up. So I really like the group format because it lets kiddos know I'm not alone.
Mm.
I'm not alone.
Wow.
They're going through exactly the same thing, which is what I wish I would have had as a kid. I always felt alone.
Yeah. So I think, growing up, I remember thinking like if someone was in therapy, they were crazy, like it was like I wouldn't
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think of doing that. But now I think people don't have that stigma anymore. There's so many people who go and it's like a badge of honor almost now. My
Well,
therapist said, or my therapist said,
yeah,
right?
and and it's I just think it's more talked
Yeah.
about, and the athletes and movie stars are opening up about their struggles and how they got help, and that's really helped to decrease the stigma too,
Yeah.
because there's no stigma in wanting to feel better. And everybody, the issues, feeling lonely or anxiety or depression or everybody has those negative thoughts in their head.
Right. No, I love that. There's no stigma in wanting to feel better.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know?
Yeah. And that's the truth.
So with the anxiety and depression, I know a lot of kids, some interns came where I was working, and they were just like comparing the drugs they were on, and oh, I take that one and I take this one. Like it was just like I was shocked. Can you I mean, has your work been able to help these kids without medication or get them off the medication?
Y-
Or they don't
Yeah.
need it anymore?
So I do in my program meditations that really help. And actually, the kids will text me, "Can we do a meditation today?" Because they find it helps them so that they feel centered and calm.
Mhm.
Um, we also do a lot of work with the thoughts because you think of your most terrible day, or something that someone said to you that wasn't pleasant, and you cringe, your body tightens, you stop breathing, you don't feel good. Do the opposite of that. Change it to the best day ever, where people were giving you compliments. Your body relaxes, you feel better. It's about your thoughts. Yeah.
Mm.
So we do a lot of work on thoughts, and people don't do a lot of examining their own thoughts. But you can, whenever there's anxiety, you can always find a thought that is not helping you.
Mm.
No. So we do a lot
Interesting.
of work on that, and kids will ask to do that too because it helps them. It helps them. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same with depression, the same thing?
Same with depression. I had depression for years, and then I started working on my thoughts and was like, oh my God, no wonder I'm depressed. I'm beating myself up all the time. Now I'm
Yeah.
fine. I'm happy. you know, um,
Wow. So you didn't have to take drugs. It was just looking at your thoughts.
hmm I did
Amazing.
a lot of thought work. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm all about this going public that we can help more kids. Um, what would be your vision for the world? Let's say 3, 5 years ago, if your book got out, if your program got out, how do you see the world as you would want it?
So I see the world as knowing for each individual to know their own importance and sacredness. And when you know your own importance and sacredness, then you can see it in others, you
Mm,
know? So, not to say there's not going to be issues, but you're going to not come from anger. You're going to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Is it true? Or this is what hurt my feelings. What was going on with you? And having those heart communications versus I'm just going to fight. Just going to fight you. My feelings got hurt. I'm just going to fight you. You know, that's what I see. I see a more peaceful planet where we all work together and see everything as sacred
mm,
and loving. Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh,
And it
all right.
starts from within, you know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there's some places I know I've interviewed some people where there is just violence and they just do, um, boom, dead, like actually shoot people. And it's like, wow, imagine if this could be brought to those areas.
Yeah. Because
How do
they're in
you, yeah,
anger. They don't know how to get from anger because underneath anger is that sadness. You hurt my
yeah,
feelings. I feel disrespected. You
mm-hmm,
know, they don't know how to get there. They just anger back. You got to go deeper.
yeah. And um, how do you see this getting out? This, what you're doing? How can we get this out?
Well, it's already in a couple schools. I am working on spreading the word, and I think I'm working on getting it into the prisons and into the juvenile facilities because it's really needed there.
Mm.
And I think it's also needed in the schools. There's curriculum that the schools have that they call social emotional, which is more surface. And then there's the deeper stuff. This is the deeper stuff. So I'd like to see this in the schools so kids start learning it at an early age.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, if you want to bring this into your schools or bring this to your kids, go to howtobehappy.kids and find Kristin Bruce, or you can text her. Make it easier, 714-330-4468. Such an important work that you're doing. Thank you so much
Yeah. Thank
for doing
you.
this.
Thank you. My pleasure. My
Yeah.
passion. My passion.
Yes. Well, you can tell, and you're just so gifted at it. So thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching this episode. I started Getting Real with Hillary when I discovered that I was a people-pleasing, pleasant phony and wanted to be more of my real self. We can grow together if you will like the show, subscribe to my channel, and share this episode with your friends and family so that we can have a world that's more real.